Okay, so we are here with one of the leading heptathletes in her field, recently securing the indoor national championship pentathlon title. Welcome to Montgomery and Co, Chari.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
So you're currently training, right?
Yes. Yeah. Training.
Wow.
All right.
I actually leave soon to go to Austria to do some competition. So it'll be really cool.
Wow.
Okay, so I listen. Yeah, so I've trained all my life. I know what that grind is about, but like, tell me what the training is like, because you've been competing at a top level for so many years. So what is your training regimen like?
Yeah, it looks really different every day, to be honest. But I would say my longest day has been 9.5 hours, and my shortest day is probably 4.5.
Your shortest day is 4.5, longest day. I want people to think about this. Like, shortest day, 4.5 hours, 9.5 for the longest day. Do you have periods like, so in the WNBA, a lot of people know this, but we go to play overseas in the off season. So we have a very, very short, I would say, break off season per se. Like, when is your off season? Do you take time like to yourself? Like, when is that time?
Yeah, so World Championships is going to be in July this year. So we'll probably have, 3 months to just kind of like pretend we don't know what track is and go do whatever we want to do and see our families for the first time of the entire year. And so, yeah, definitely going to be a good off season this year because it's been a really busy on season, but it's been so fun. It's been a really fun year.
Oh, wait. Before we go any further, I have to ask a question. What are you possibly doing for 9? Like, how do you, I'm trying to think of like how many different exercises. I know you probably lift, you probably do like 9 hours. It's like just a quick breakdown of what that day would look like in a 9-hour day.
For
just
a normal person, that like 2 hours is a bit.
Yeah, it does get like really intense sometimes. So I would say that a 9-hour day would look like me waking up and getting to the track. Workout warm-ups can be anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and 15, right around there. Okay. And then usually with 9-hour days, we're going to be working on at least 3 different events. And each of those events can be about, I would say each of those events can be about an hour to an hour and a half long. But we're doing a lot of like, so high jump training. I don't want people to think that I'm just running for 9 hours straight because that's definitely not what's happening. It's going to be a lot of like technical events. We're going to be doing past my general warm up. There's going to be an entire high jump warm up where we have to do circle runs. We have to do drills. We have to do all that kind of stuff. And then we're actually jumping for, I would say, about 30 to 40 minutes. So it's going to be between an hour and an hour and a half.
That's
per
a lot
event.
of jumping. I mean, I know you're saying it's technical, but Cole was a high jumper.
Yes,
that's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Because we'll do 1-step jumps. We'll do 3-step jumps. We'll do 5-step, and then we'll get our full approach runs, and we'll do a bunch off of that.
Do you also do the Western roll?
So yeah, I actually do not do the Western roll, but it's so interesting. I do the Fosbury flop. But it's so interesting. Yeah. I went to Italy last year, and I talked to one of the meet directors, and he actually did the Western roll for us, and it was so different. It was so like the way that he went over top instead of like behind, which is the way that I'm used to it, and we were like filming him. We were like, "Wow, like this is so cool!" So it is so interesting. Yeah, it was. In my opinion, it's way more athletic to be able to do the Western roll than to do the Fosbury flop. In my opinion, I actually did basketball in high school, and so being able to basketball was probably the reason that helped me so much in the high jump. Is just that doing like a layup is the exact same motion as doing the high jump.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a big advantage for sure. But yeah, so I mean, if we're doing 3 events that day, that's going to be right there. That's 4.5 hours just in event work. Yeah, plus we've got the hour to an hour and 15 before. Then after that, usually we'll do a weightlifting session, which can be anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I also do physical therapy, but my physical therapy is not as much fun as like just like,
Restoring.
like let's get you released and everything. It's like, oh, okay, your glute hurts. Okay, well, let me have you do like exercises for 10 minutes so that you can build up that muscle. So it's a lot of like physical therapy exercises as well. And by the time I'm getting home, I really, that's when I notice how long my days are, because I get home and I'm like, have I been gone for 9.5 hours? You know, and
yes,
it does.
Crazy.
It's so fun, and it's so versatile, and that's what's kind of nice about being a heptathlete. It's not very redundant, so you really do get you don't get bored ever. So it's easy. Yeah. It's easy to put in a 9-hour day for sure.
No,
I can see. My workout starts and begins when you just warming up. The hour and 15 is about all that my mind is probably as far as my body can take. That's a cool. That's a warm up, an exercise, a cool down, an hour and 15.
he said your warm up is her whole workout. That's crazy. You know, you talked about traveling. Like you said, you're heading to Austria soon. Then you were talking about being in Italy, and then you also studied in England while you were doing the British Outdoor Championship, right? And so what was that like? You know, what was it like being there, and what is it like for you traveling? Because we're very similar in the sense of WNBA players. We travel a lot. We've been to a lot of different countries. So what is that like, you know, just kind of traveling around and seeing things as you work?
I don't know how it was for you, but there was, you know, it doesn't seem like I've done that much traveling. If you look at my passport, it seems like I've done a ton of traveling, but because I'm going there and I'm just like anxious.
Business trips.
yeah, it doesn't feel like I've done a ton of exploring of places. The great thing is usually we'll stay a little longer and we'll do, you know, a day or two of just, you know, doing like touristy things so that we can feel like we actually did it. But I don't know. Is that how it was for you?
No, it's just like that. Listen, Snook, when are the only times that I actually leave the house when I'm overseas?
Never.
Well, I was going to say
when we visit,
I was going to say
touristy things, because otherwise Renee's there. I said, "Have you been this place?" No. You know, we go to Paris. I said, "Well, have you been to the Eiffel Tower?" No. And we went, and she didn't go then.
I didn't go with them. That's the thing. It's like, because when you're traveling for like your sport, it's like if it's the day before a meet or a game, you're not going to be out and about doing tourist things. And then if it's the day after the game, I probably want to chill because I'm tired from the game, and then just rinse and repeat. We had two-a-days a lot of times overseas. So for me, when I had a two-a-day, there's no room for activities in the middle of the two practices for me. It's a no for me, like automatically. So yes, I actually agree with you 100%. I have a lot of stamps. I have multiple passports actually at this point, and they're full with stamps. And I don't feel like I've been so many places.
Yeah, I'm with you. That really is how it is for me too. I also really, really, really care about how I feel the next day. So I'm not the person that's going to go and hike. No, ma'am.
No, it's
a
no.
It's
a no for us.
No. Yeah. So
it's a no.
Yeah. I have actually been invited to like, oh, do you guys want to come out? And I'm like, it's 8:00. I have to be in bed in an hour. And that's how I was when I was overseas too. So every once in a while, the good news is every once in a while I would go because we'd find like a flight. Me and my, at the time, fiance, now husband, would find a flight for $15 one way to Greece. And we were like, I mean, we should go to Greece. Wow. You know what I mean? So every once in a while we do like a trip like that, which was really cool. But for the most part, unless my parents came and visited me, I wasn't doing a ton of like really crazy things. Like
same.
Yeah.
Exact same.
I mean, I think that's the athlete lifestyle, right? Like everything is your job is to be dedicated, you know, and be prepared for the next morning. So for the next day. So I feel like Renee's still like that. I think she's been conditioned to be in the athlete lifestyle for so much that even now she still doesn't.
I was going to ask.
We live in Atlanta, and I still don't even know.
Atlanta. Yeah, I was just going to ask, does it get better when you're no longer?
It does not. It carries. It does not get better because we're so trained. We are so trained. Like I literally, like I give myself routines and there's no need for it. It's like, I know that there was no need to put myself on a time constraint, but it's like, I'm so used to like just a routine and doing things a certain way. So it does not get better, but it actually is amazing in adulthood, because it's like, people are like, wow, you really have yourself together. And it's like, really? I just feel like I'm just doing my norm. So it sounds like self-care to me, just keeping your routine. And speaking of that, you know, you speak a lot about mental health, and you're a mental health advocate. You have a large following on social media where you give advice and you give tips and different things like that. So being an athlete, I know we're almost taught mental strength and to be stronger. So what kind of made you like want to actually put it out there about, you know, being an advocate? And then like, you know, what are some of those tips?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I think the reason I became so passionate about mental health and mental strength was because I personally didn't think I had any. And as much as my parents are the coolest, like they never miss a meet, and you know, they're coming to Austria with me, like they're my biggest support system. But they're almost my biggest support system to a fault, because my dad would be like, you have such a heart of a champion, like you always like da, da, da. And I'm always like, I'm freaking out, like please don't talk to me.
Help me, I'm weak right now.
And so they're always just like, wow, like we're just so proud of like how mentally tough you are. And I'm like, they're like on the phone with me, I like just got done crying, and I'm like, yeah, so mentally tough, you know? And when I was in college, I had such bad anxiety. Oh man, I didn't know enough, thank goodness, about, you know, my body, and like, I didn't know actually how to do this. But one time I tried to tear my own Achilles, because I figured if I tore my Achilles, nobody would be mad at me for doing bad, or nobody would be mad at me for not finishing, because like I can't do this, like I cannot do this. So I was like jumping on my foot weird. Again, thank goodness I didn't know anything about like how to tear an Achilles or like how it actually happens, but I was like really trying. And then I was like in the midst of doing it, and I was like, are you okay? You know, like, are you actually okay right now? Like, you want to struggle for the next year trying to get, because you're not going to quit. You're going to struggle for the next year trying to get back into it. Like, like you really want to, or you could just go run the 800 really quickly and you're going to do just fine. It's going to be 2 minutes of pain, but you're really wanting to put yourself on risk for an entire year.
So you would have rather, so basically your mind would have rather to have injured yourself rather than tell people that you're not like mentally ready to run that race, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like, I think that was the biggest ding. I think you have some anxiety. Like, I think there's a problem here. That was like my first thing of like, and then I realized, what's wrong with me? Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And as I got older, I'm realizing there's nothing wrong with me, and we're all having issues. And I think that was like my biggest, I hate when people say, if you need help, do this, instead of when you need help, do this. Because I don't think, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any of us here that have been like, never been like, what the heck? Like, what is going on?
Almost daily.
Yeah, right?
At least once a day.
I'm curious because, you know, I can't help but hear your situation and think about, are you familiar with the Ben Simmons situation about how, you know, he's struggling mentally and has a block and like doesn't want to get back out there? Have you heard anything about that situation?
Yes, I have, but I haven't like gone like super, super into it. Yeah. But
okay, because I'm just curious. Yeah, because I'm just curious because I think his block was the same. He doesn't necessarily want to go out there and play yet for fill in the blank, whatever his reasoning is. And so I'm curious, what got you through it? Like, what got you past that point of not wanting to get out there? Because his was out loud that, you know, the world found out, because unfortunately in the NBA, if you're not playing, then you're going to have to talk about it. So like, what kind of got you past that point to be like, okay, I can get out there and I can do it?
Yeah, like did you take a break like when you were feeling like that? Like, how did you help yourself? That I will.
So interestingly enough, I just assumed that if I got better, I would like physically better, I wouldn't mentally be so stressed. Like, if I was better, I wouldn't have any reason to not want to go back out. So I put my head down and I just went to work physically. But every day, I mean, I was at national championships in position to take a silver medal home with me. And there's this tent type thing that's the score. It's like a timer, and you can fit like just like a little tiny body under there. And I crawled under there and just sobbed because I didn't want anybody to see me crying. And I just sobbed. And it was like, girl, like, what are you even doing? And
were you crying because of you had already gotten the silver? But
no, I was just doing really well. And so I worked really hard, and there was just a part of me that was like, I don't want to throw this away, and I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to lose everything that I just built throughout this competition. Yeah. And that I ended up right after that, I ended up pulling my hamstring because my body was just so tight. So tense. I wasn't able to finish, and I was devastated because I knew I did that to myself. Like, my body wasn't going to just pull a hamstring. Like, it was because I had exhausted myself so much mentally. And I looked at my parents. We were in New York, and I looked at my parents, and I told them, I was like, I'm never going to feel this again. I'm not doing this anymore. And the biggest thing that I started doing, actually, weirdly, it's a little bit vulnerable, but like, I just started asking every single person I knew, have you ever had anxiety? Like, what caused it and what made it feel better and like why? And I just told everybody I knew, like, I'm just having some anxiety, and I just thought I would ask, like, what are your thoughts? And so probably
pretty much. And what was like some other responses? Like,
and
people experiencing
some people were like, yeah, sometimes, and they'll be like, yeah, but like it usually will pass, and all that kind of stuff. And finally, I got a response that I could actually use, and somebody said, what did they say? They said, I detached myself from my performance, and so ever since then, not really. And it was this weird thought, because I was like, detach yourself from your performance. Yeah. And I realized, like, am I attached to my performance? And there was this clarity thinking, oh my goodness, like, I see myself as valuable if I do well. And I see myself as not valuable if I do poorly. And I think, I talked to you guys about my parents were my biggest supporters. They usually gave me like that, you're a heart of a champion, you have everything, like, you got this. It was usually after I won. And they didn't know that they were doing that. But I was conditioned to know win equals love and lose equals. And I also noticed that when I lose, it wasn't that people were like, you suck, you're the worst. It was more, they just kind of like left. Like, I think it's because they didn't want to, they maybe Chari needs some time, like, maybe I should give her space. But what they were really teaching me was, we're going to be here for you when, and not just my parents, I'm talking everybody, like radio silence if I did bad, and tons of messages and like calls and all that kind of stuff if I did well. And there was this, if you do poorly, we don't care about you. And if you do well, we do. And so think about that on the line. Now I'm not just racing for a silver medal or a gold medal or a personal best. I'm racing for other people's approval of me and for their love.
That's
and
the
for,
validations.
For human acceptance.
That just shows how different people handle it as well, because, Renee being an athlete, she won a lot, but she did lose some. And we had to learn that we did not, we always wanted to wrap our arms around and say, oh, that's okay. We don't care about that. But she pushed us away and said, once I lose, I'm going into my room and I'm going to handle it the way I handle it. When she came out, she was fine, but she did not allow us to show her that love.
That's real talk.
We tried to every
And I think
time.
that's the athlete
And I think that it's and I
Mm.
think that to your point, it's interesting because it's like in sports, the only thing you're supposed to do is win. So if you're not winning, then what are you doing? Like if you're training, ain't nobody out there training to lose. And so if you're training every day, all day, look, she's talking about 9 hours she put in basketball. You know, we put in long hours as well. So you ain't putting in all them long hours to lose. And so for me, it's just like it's the same though. You know that no matter what, you know, there's a look that people give you when you lose. And I think that's what she's also talking about, in the sense of when you look around, you walk out of the locker room and everybody's looking at you, it's like, oh, this is the pits, like this is a nightmare. And so there's always going to be that aspect of it. But I'm just curious now, you said you're
I mean, this is also very, I don't mean to cut you off, but just before we move on, this is so intriguing to me because of what Renee just said, is like the athlete, you know, athletes like you guys have been conditioned to win. And you said something very interesting. You said that you detach yourself from, you know, from basically from your sports personality, you know, and I think that from your performance, exactly. So I think that that's very interesting. We've been seeing a lot of that. Let's say even like Naomi Osaka, who, you know, who took a pause because she said, hold on, I need a break right now. And I think that it's so intriguing to hear your story because I feel like as an athlete, you are conditioned to win. But then also, I think furthermore, as a woman, sometimes you feel like you don't want to say no. You almost feel like you need to have an excuse, almost like you said, I have to, you know, get hurt or do something so I can have a reason not to play. So I feel like it's so interesting to hear that because it reminds me of when Renee opted out a little bit. Like when you talk about detaching yourself from your performance, you know, it's hard to say no to something that's all you've known, that's all you've loved, you know, for a long time. And it's like, and you know, I'm so much more than my sport. You know, I'm a person too. You know, so it's so beautiful and refreshing to hear you just be so honest. And thank you for sharing.
It did come to a space of when I saw that, I actually asked myself, like, are you only a good person when you do well? And I was like, no, you know, like, no, I have like so many cool things about me that matter and have nothing to do with my performance. And that was a huge aha moment for me. And actually that was in 2019. And the meet that I'm actually headed to in Austria soon, which is, like, this is actually really special. That was the next meet that I was headed to. And I promised myself that I wasn't even going to look at my score. I wasn't going to remember any marks that I hit. And I wasn't going to do anything other than enjoy the sport that I train every day doing. And I was just going to, at the beginning of the day, be like, okay, like I'm going to do that. And remember, I was coming off of a hamstring injury, so I hadn't run or really practiced besides like getting on the bike in 10 weeks from that. Wow. And I ended up I did like a personal worst in the high jump, which was my first test because I did so poorly in the high jump. That would have been like devastating to me in before. But instead, I smiled and shrugged. And I like went and I gave my parents, and I was like, well, that was not good. And my parents just like laughed. And I went back and all the girls like looked at me because they knew I just did really bad. And I was like, not my best day, huh? And I was like, oh, well. And all of them were like, wow. And every single girl came up to me and was like, I don't know how you do that. Like, I don't know how you do that. And I was like, it's not, I'm pretending, you know? I didn't want to be like, this was just a pretend thing. But it was so interesting because it made me realize that and they were all like, that is like the best attitude. Like you have such a good, and it was so interesting because I got all of the praise that I had been used to getting from winning, but I had just done my personal worst. But I realized that having the attitude of like me being like, okay, like all I can do is my best, you know, kind of a thing. It took me into the rest of the meet went so incredibly well. I had
playing
so
loose.
much
You were
fun.
running loose. You felt loose, you know, like it's kind of the opposite of being tense and being tense and your hamstring tightens up. Like you were loose, you were flowing.
It's manifesting itself physically too. Like that's how your mental and your physical are connected, you know. Then people who are not athletes, they don't always understand that you have to have your mind right to perform well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's that was the biggest aha moment for me when in terms of like on my mental journey. And I actually haven't had a panic attack during a competition since then.
Awesome.
And I had
Beautiful.
not had a panic
That's
attack
amazing.
before that in any of my meets, not had a panic attack. And then all of a sudden, just they were done. I had finally realized that I am more than my performance. And it doesn't mean that I don't get nervous, and it doesn't mean that I still don't like kind of be like, you know, that still happens, but it's just, it was the biggest difference for me. And since that moment, actually, my like scores had just skyrocketed. It was just so much better.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Well,
listen,
here real quick and just ask this one question I'm dying to ask. What is your favorite event?
There you go.
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question. So I actually think that the first 3 events are my 3 favorites. High jump, hurdles, and shot put. The reason why is high jump and hurdles are kind of like I kind of called them. I had like a really funny like running joke on my social media where I called all of the events my side pieces and like what they mean to me. And it was kind of like, you know, like hurdles was my like my favorite. Like she's like the sexiest, and she's just like all this like good stuff. But and I understand we connect well, you know, like it's all that good. High jump is marriage material. Tried, true, like fun, cool.
Main Jane right there.
Yeah. I said shot put was the one I think I can change. And so
y'all got potential.
Yeah, exactly. Shot put's the one I think I could change. I said that 200 was that foreign, the foreign one that we don't speak the same language. I have no idea what's going on, but like so attractive, but like no idea what's going on. And then I don't remember what the rest of them was. I remember those ones, but like yeah, I did like that really funny running joke. But it is so interesting how you do have relationships with the other. Oh, I did say though that the 800 was like the toxic one where that like gives you so much anxiety, you hate it, so much pain, but at the end they bring you flowers and they're like, "We love you," and you're like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Yeah.
Why did I keep going back?
That 800,
every time.
800 is a monster. I ran that one. Woo, that was crazy.
But then as soon as you're done with it and like they bring you flowers and you're like, "Oh, all is forgiven. It's fine. I love you." And then it's just a vicious cycle.
The toxicity. Well, listen,
I love that. That is so.
I love it.
That reminds me almost of like Inside Out.
I love that movie.
Inside Out. Oh my gosh, I made Renee watch that movie the other day, like for the first time, because it's so good, right? I feel like they made it for kids, but it's also for adults. Because it really talks about like everybody's mentals, and it's just so cool, like to see how Disney was able to break those little islands up, and that's what it reminded me. Like I could see that whole joke that you were telling, I could literally see that in my head, like the little islands. It was so cool.
Yeah, so funny. I actually love the one where when they go into the mom and the dad's emotional states, and it is so funny. Like that is like the funniest part. I love that part.
Well, listen, we wish you nothing but the best on your European circuit. I'm glad you are feeling good, genuinely detached from your performance, because, you know, we are not our performances. You find that out. A lot of people find that out when they retire. They go through this lull because they don't know what to do with themselves. They get confused because they feel like their worth is attached to their sport. But as you have already found out before you retire that it's not. So we wish you nothing but the best on your way to try to compete in the Olympics and all of the things that you're doing.
Yes,
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. It was so great to be on here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.